Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So, Avani Kopi Matai, when are you ready? You can start Matai.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayat Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Pankajanabhaya Namo Pankajamalini Namo Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangri. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, verses 25 to 36. Vidura approaches Maitreya. Text 25. Vidura said, O Uddhava, because the servant of Vishnu, the Lord, wanders in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord himself. Text 26. Sri Uddhava said, you may take lessons from the great learned sage Maitreya, who is nearby and who is worshipable for receptions of transcendental knowledge. He was directly instructed by the personality of Godhead while he was about to quit this mortal world. Text 27. Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, after thus discussing with Vidura the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc., on the bank of the Yamuna, Uddhava was overwhelmed with great affliction. He passed the night as if it were a moment, and thereafter he went away. Text 28. The king inquired, at the end of the past times of the Lord of the three worlds, Sri Krishna, and after the disappearance of the members of the Vrishni and Bhoja dynasty, who were the best of the great commanders, why did Uddhava alone remain? Text 29. Sukadeva Goswami replied, my dear king, the cursing of the Brahmanas was only a peal, but the actual fact was the supreme desire of the Lord. He wanted to disappear from the face of the earth after dispatching his excessively numerous family members. He thought to himself as follows. Text 30. Now I shall leave the vision of this mundane world, and I see that Uddhava, the foremost of my devotees, is the only one who can be directly entrusted with the knowledge about me. Text 31. Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way because he is never affected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he may remain in this world in order to disseminate the specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Text 32. Sukadeva Goswami informed the king that Uddhava, being thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all Vedic knowledge and the spiritual master of the three worlds, reached the pilgrimage site of the Badrikashrama and engaged himself there in trains to satisfy the Lord. Text 33. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the super soul in the mortal world, which is subject matter sought after the great preservance by the great sages. Text 34. The Lord's glorious acts and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of the extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than his devotees to understand. And for the beast, they are simply a mental disturbance. Text 35. Understanding that he was remembered by Lord Krishna while quitting this world, Vidura began to cry loudly, overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love. Text 36. After passing a few days on the bank of the river Yamuna, Vidura, the self-realized soul, reached the bank of the Ganges, where the great sage Maitreya was situated. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, Vidura approaches Maitreya. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mother. Hare Krishna. Yeah, Gopijana Primati, when are you ready, you can start.
Prabhuji, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to still Prabhupada and Gurudev. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pasyate Shatarne. I'm going to share the screen real quick. It looks like I'm not able to share.
Yeah, I forgot, Mother. I made you co-host just now, Mother.
Okay, thank you. So today we are continuing to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text 25 onwards. So far we have heard how Vidura has met with Uddhava on the bank of river Yamuna after he has visited several holy places, and as soon as he meet with Uddhava, he has he felt so much satisfaction and also felt happiness meeting such a pure devotee Uddhava on the bank of river Yamuna, and he asked a series of questions about the welfare of Vrishnis, Bhojas, and Yadu dynasty, and also the welfare of Vasudeva, Devaki, Balaram, and Krishna. Then at the time, Uddhava has gone to trance for a muhurta, that is 48 minutes. And then he came out of the trance, he started speaking to Vidura. And he said that where could be the happiness, because Krishna has disappeared from this planet, from all our vision. And also he has amazingly recollected the pastimes of Krishna, first in a random way, but again he has composed himself and he started speaking pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, outside of Vrindavan, that is in Dwaraka, Madhura, Dwaraka, and Hastinapur as well. So he has in a sequence way. And hearing that Vidura is so overwhelmed with joy, hearing Krishna's pastimes, and also he's also feeling great separation from Krishna after hearing that he has also departed from this mortal world. And he composed himself. He also heard about his family, relatives, and friends also about the Kurukshetra war, and he heard that how all of their family members are also destroyed. So he composed himself, even though he has little sorrow about that, but because of the advancement of his spiritual knowledge, he composed himself, and he continued to ask further questions with Uddhava. And in this chapter, we have seen how the disappearance of the Yadus have taken place, and they have drank liquor. It is all happening because of the Lord desire. We repeatedly hear this in several verses and also from other devotees in this canto, how Krishna has articulated that disappearance of Yadus before his departure from this material world. And at Dwarka itself, Lord Krishna has instructed Uddhava to go to Badrikashma and give the association and take the association from the sages there. But out of love for Krishna, Uddhava followed Krishna, and he has seen him under a banyan tree in Prabhasa Kshetra. And at the same time, Maitreya Muni also came on his own accord, and he met Krishna and Uddhava there. Then Uddhava has glorified Krishna, and also he offered nice prayers and requested him to enlighten him with the transcendental knowledge. Then Krishna has spoken Srimad Bhagavatam it is Chatusloki that, he has given the knowledge to Brahma at the beginning of the creation. And he has also given the knowledge about the Paramasthitham, that is transcendental situation, that is much more to what he has mentioned about that we will discuss today's verses also. And the same knowledge also has heard by Maitreya Muni. So it is said that Maitreya Muni was having little impersonalism before meeting Krishna and also before hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. But after that, because of the association of Krishna and also hearing instructions from Krishna directly, he has become a pure devotee afterwards, and he's all qualified, fully qualified to impart that knowledge to Vidura later on. So we have seen how, in the previous verse, 24th verse, that was explained on Friday by Prabhuji, that Uddhava is the most confidential among the devotees. Vidura is addressing Uddhava as, you are the chiefest amongst the devotees. And he questioned him with affection and confidence. Uddhava was about to leave, but Vidura was asking the question to Uddhava with great affection. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that Vidura was much older to Uddhava, because Uddhava is cousin of Krishna, and Vidura is as elderly as Vasudeva. That means that Vidura is at the fatherly age of Uddhava. So even though he's older, much older than Uddhava, he's acting as a humble servant to Uddhava, because Uddhava is very advanced in the spiritual knowledge, in the devotional service. That's why he's addressing him as the chiefest of the devotees. So today's verse 25th. So Vidura is saying to Uddhava that you are the servant of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, and you just wander on this earth because you just want to serve the others. So please describe me that the self-knowledge that you have enlightened, that you have been enlightened by the Supreme Lord. So Vidura asked that question to Uddhava. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that so the servants of the Lord, they don't have any interest in this human society other than imparting the knowledge to the living entities. So he nicely described about the imparting the knowledge in Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana. That is, Sambandha is relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord. And then Abhidaya is the activities in the transcendental relationship, and ultimate goal of the human life is, that is, Prayojana. So the servants of the Lord, they impart the knowledge in this aspect with respect to Supreme Lord, and the living beings Sambandha with the Lord, as well as Abhidaya and Prayojana. So we know that there are two types of knowledge. One is the material knowledge, the other one is spiritual knowledge. So the material knowledge that is in matter, it is concerning about the bodily necessities. Those are eating, sleeping, mating, fearing. So those aspects. And we know that how this material body is very temporary. And the material knowledge is also, it is not complete. It is also temporary. So because we are part and parcel of Supreme Lord and we are spirit soul, we need to attain, we need to revive that self-knowledge within us. So how does that happen? It is only because of the servants of the Lord. They wander on this earth and they impart that knowledge to all the conditioned souls. We have seen how Srila Prabhupada has done world tour 14 times in order to impart that knowledge to all the people in this world. So only because of that, only to impart that knowledge, they wander in this world. That is the point that here Prabhupada is making. And also, how can you attain that real knowledge is only through discrete succession, that is Guru Parampara. So how Krishna is imparting that knowledge to, how he has imparted the knowledge to Uddhava and Maitreya, and then Uddhava to Vidura, and it goes on and like that. So, but by any other means, getting this transcendent knowledge, it is not possible. So, for those who are trying to get the knowledge outside of Guru Parampara, we are just baffled. So here, Prabhupada further explains that Vidura was anxious to know about Lord, and so even though he is older than Uddhava, he's very anxious to become servant of Uddhava. That's why he's asking to impart that knowledge from Uddhava, to get the knowledge from Uddhava. So here, even though he's much younger to him, he's ready to serve him. He's humbly accepting him as his spiritual master. So here, Srila Prabhupada is saying that this formula that we can see and taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. So what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises is that one can attain this transcendental knowledge from anyone. He can be Sudra, he can be Brahmana, he can be householder or sannyasi, provided that he is fully conversant of the science of Krishna. That is, he can become bona fide spiritual master if he has that realization of science of Krishna. So, and then 26th verse. So here we can see Uddhava's response, and Vidura has humbly accepting him as spiritual master. But here Uddhava is saying, as a response to that, you can take the lessons from great sage Maitreya Muni, because he's also there when Supreme Lord Krishna is imparting those instructions to me. He is worshipable, and he's also received those instructions directly from Supreme Lord. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has written about Maryada Vitikrama, that one should be very careful about this offense, because here we see that Vidura wanted to accept Uddhava as his spiritual master, but Uddhava did not accept that post because Vidura was old as Uddhava's father, and therefore Uddhava could not accept him as his disciple, especially when Maitreya Muni was present there, and he also got the knowledge. He's a pure devotee, and he's much older than Uddhava. He's as elderly as Vidura. So he felt that Vidura has felt that Maitreya Muni has full qualification to become spiritual master to Vidura, and on top of that, he has also got service to go to Badrikashrama from Krishna directly, that to go to Badrikashrama and give association there. That's why Vidura, Uddhava was directing Vidura to go and get the instructions from Maitreya Muni. So here Srila Prabhupada writes about Maryada Vitikrama, that the rule is that in the presence of higher authority, one must not be eager to impart the instructions. They must not be eager to impart the instruction when higher authority is present in the assembly. And if they do so, it is a caution is also given. The duration of the life it loses the duration of the life, the opulence, the name, the piety. He will get loose of those aspects. That's why it is very, very important to follow the etiquette. Here, Uddhava has followed the etiquette that by directing him to Maitreya Muni. And but when higher authority give the instruction to the disciple or to the devotees, then they can take it as instruction and humbly follow that instruction with their blessing. Here, Srila Prabhupada writes that one should not become a spiritual master cheaply for the sake of profit and fame, but they should become the spiritual master only for the service of the Lord. The Lord never tolerates Maryada Vetikrama. One should follow this principle very carefully. With execution of the services, or and while imparting the instructions in the assembly of the higher authority. So it should be we should be very humble in following such etiquette. And 27. So the conversation. Yeah, 27. So now the conversation went to the main loop. That is, Sukadeva Goswami is telling to Parikshit Maharaj that after discussing with Vidura all the transcendental name, qualities, and pastimes on the bank of Yamuna, Uddhava was overwhelmed with great separation, and he passed that night as just a moment, and he left. He went away, but away to Badrikashrama. So here in the purport, Sri Prabhupada writes about Vishwamurti. So the emphasis is given here. So both Uddhava and Vidura, they're pure devotees of the Lord, and they're in great affliction from because of the Lord Krishna's departure. And the more that they discuss the transcendental name and pastimes of Krishna, so it is they can see Krishna everywhere. The more that they discuss, the Lord became visible to them everywhere. And such visualization is not infatuation, or it is not imagination. It is factually they are seeing the absolute truth everywhere. And we hear from Brahma Samhita that Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. That is, the eyes are, they put the ointment of love for Krishna. They can see Krishna everywhere, Shama Sundar form. So when the Lord is perceived as Vishwamurti, it is not that he loses his personality, it's not that he loses his transcendental form. He becomes visible for them everywhere. That is Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. And then 28. So now Parikshit Maharaj was asking a question back to Sukadeva Goswami that Krishna's pastimes, it is end of the Krishna's pastimes here on this mortal world. And after disappearing the Vrishnis of Bhojas, who are the very great commanders, but why did Uddhava remain alone? What are the reasons? And the hint is also given in the previous slokas that Krishna has instructed him to go to Badrikashrama, because Krishna went to several places and he has given his association. We have seen how Krishna has revived in Katut, and it comes the sons of Sandipur Muni from Yamaloka, and he has brought Devaki's sons from other planet, and how he has taken Parijata Vriksha from heavenly planet, and he went to even Vishnu Loka, where Mahavishnu lays there. So he wanted to see Krishna in person. So we see all those that he traveled so many other planets also while he performing his pastimes here on this earthly planet, but he did not go to Badrikashrama. And also the sages there, they have a great desire to see Krishna in person, to see Krishna, to associate with Krishna. So because he couldn't go, he has instructed Uddhava. This is one of the reasons. He instructed Uddhava to go to Badrikashrama. So here, and this question leads to the discussion that what Krishna's thought process is, why Krishna made Uddhava to remain alone here, and what he thinks about Uddhava, and what is his plan to impart that knowledge to the sages of Badrikashrama and of course all of us. So it leads to that discussion because of this question. So here, the purport, we have, there are several Sanskrit words, and the meanings are given by our Acharya, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because we know that how the Sanskrit meanings have different meanings depending on the context. They don't have a frozen meaning. It's not a single one-on-one. So it changes depending on the context. So our acharyas give that very beautifully according to the context, and from Amarakosha dictionary. So so we see that Lord Krishna ordered Uddhava to go to Badarikashrama after his departure, because as a pure devotee, Uddhava is more faithfully carrying out that instruction than going back to Godhead, that is abode of the Lord, because they know that how the instruction is more important than association of Krishna directly. And we have discussed that in the last session also by Prabhuji. Instruction has more weightage, and it has to be carried out more faithfully than association. Vani and Vapu. So 29th, and so to that question that Parikshit Maharaj asked, Sukadeva Goswami is replying that again and again, it is working only because the cursing of the Brahmanas was only a plea. That is just happening as Leela, and Krishna is articulating all that pastime. It is happening by internal potency of the Supreme Lord. The actual fact was the supreme desire of the Lord. So he wanted to dissipate from the vision of our eyes. So he has first dispatched all his family members. And now Krishna thought to himself as follows. That is Krishna thought process that will be discussed in the next few verses. So here in the purports, Srila Prabhupada has written about how Krishna is giving up the body here. And the word tekshan is very important. It's very significant in relation to Lord Krishna's leaving the body, because we know that how Krishna's body is eternal. He is Satchit Anand, and his body and his self are spiritual. They are always spiritual. And but how is it possible that he would leave his body and then disappear from this vision of world? So it is a great controversy among the non-devotees and Mayavadis. So those doubts are elaboratedly clarified by Srila Jiva Goswami in Krishna Sandarbha. So some of the points are given by Srila Prabhupada here, that according to Brahma Samhita, we know that the Lord has many forms. So he has innumerable forms. Those are infallible forms. That is Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. Adyam Purana Purusham Navayavanam Cha. So Anantarupam. He has innumerable forms. And when Lord Krishna appears here, that Lord Brahma has, makes the prayers at the Kshirodakasai Vishnu, at the ocean of Kshirodakasai, and he offers prayers for the descendant of Krishna. So when he appears here, he comes along with all Vishnu forms, all the Vishnu forms amalgamated with Krishna, and along with these infallible forms, Krishna also manifests his universal form, that is Virat Roop. We see that how he manifested that form to Arjun on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And that is material, that is universal form. So that is gigantic, massive form. So we see that, so in this verse, Sukadeva Goswami is saying the word Spitam. Spitam means gigantic. So giving up so here Sukadeva Goswami is saying that he's giving up his material universal form, but all other infallible forms, everything goes along with Krishna, and those are disintegrated, and Krishna goes to Goloka with his eternal form. So it is very simple understanding, and for the devotees. But whereas it comes to non-devotees and Mayavadis, it is very complicated. They make it complicated because they hardly perform any devotional service. They cannot understand this simple fact because they have envious nature towards Supreme Lord, and they deny the transcendental form of Supreme Lord. So even Prabhupada says here that the worshipping deities, the temple deities that we worship, those are also non-different from Krishna. they also have the transcendental form, because Krishna manifests himself in that Archana Vigraha for all the conditioned souls to accept our service. And also by the request of few devotees, when Prana Pratishtha, he comes and he manifests there. So he is non-different from the Archana Vigrahas are non-different from Supreme Lord. But this is inconceivable internal potency, cannot be understood by impersonalists or by non-devotees. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.25 that Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavita. So the Lord reserves the right not to be exposed to everyone. And also in Padma Purana it says that Ata Sri Krishna Namati na bhavet grahyam indriyaha. The name and form of the Lord, they cannot be perceived by the material senses, because Krishna is transcendental. His name, form, everything is transcendental. So when we use our material senses, we cannot understand him. So it can be understood. Then how can we understand? So we can understand only by pure devotional service. So because of for the mundane people who cannot understand the Lord, they assume the form of Virat Roop. So just like when the subjective and the adjective is used here, the analogy is given that when we use adjective in the subject, even though we drop the adjective, subject it remains same. It doesn't make any difference. Adjective, we are just dropping off the object adjective, right? So like that, when the Virat Rupa is Krishna gave the Virat Roop here, he goes with his subject, that is his transcendental form. Yeah, and then 30th verse. So now Krishna's thought process in the next few slokas. So Krishna's thinking is that I shall leave the vision of this mundane world, and I see that the foremost of my devotees, is the only one who can be directly entrusted with knowledge about me. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has taken Gnanam Madashrayam, this word, and he has elaborated. So it is very significant here. The transcendent knowledge has the three departmental divisions. One is the knowledge about the Brahman, that is impersonal Brahman, and knowledge of the all-pervading soul, that is super soul. And the third one is knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the third one, the knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is very special significance, and it can be attained only by a pure devotional service. And Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita 18.55, Bhaktyamam abhishanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. So only persons who engage in the devotional service of the Lord, they can only know the transcendental position of the Lord. So we see the similar verse in Srimad Bhagavatam also in Canto 1, Chapter 2. Evam prasanna manaso bhaktyamam Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. It's the same word. Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. So one who engages in the devotion, pure devotional service, they can only understand the transcendent position of the Lord. So here Uddhava was considered to be the best amongst all the devotees of the time. Therefore, Lord has directly instructed that knowledge to Uddhava. So after his disappearance, after Krishna's disappearance from the vision of this world, then Uddhava was advised to go to Badrikashrama, because he's the representative of Supreme. He's the companion of Supreme Lord in Dwaraka, and he's eternal servant. He's confidential servitor of Supreme Lord. He can only depart that knowledge perfectly to the sages of Badrikashrama. So 31. And Krishna is thinking that Uddhava is not inferior to me in any way, because he is unaffected by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he can remain here in this world in order to disseminate the specific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Krishna himself is thinking that Uddhava is as good as me because he's unaffected by the modes of the material nature and the knowledge that he has attained from the Supreme Lord. Of course, Krishna thinks about his devotees, giving his position as well as higher position to him. But devotees always have intention to serve Krishna, and they know their position very well, the eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. And here in the purport, Sri Prabhupada writes that the specific qualification for becoming the representative of the Lord is to be unaffected by the material modes, the lower modes. And we know that how Brahmana is the highest qualification in the society, human society, but they are still situated in they are in the mode of goodness prominently, right? So that's why because they're in the mode of goodness, it is not sufficient for Brahmana to become a representative of the Lord. So one has transcended the mode of goodness, one who situates in the mode of in the transcendental mode, that is pure goodness, the sattva. They only can become the representative of the Supreme Lord. So such stage transcendental qualification is called the sattva, and only at that stage the signs of God can be realized, and they are the true representative of the Supreme Lord. And Uddhava, he is here as a pure devotee. He is not affected by the modes, and the primary qualification is that he is situated in the transcendental qualification. He's called Jivan Mukta. So Jivan Mukta, Rupa Goswami has given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the verse is also quoted here. So for those who by their action, words and mind, they always live in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, those are called Jivan Mukta. They live here in this material world, but their actions, words, and mind, they always engage them in the transcendental loving of the service. Those are called Jivan Muktas. So Uddhava is Jivan Mukta, and he is the representative of the Supreme Lord. So such devotees are called Goswamis. So Goswamis only can penetrate the mysteries of the Lord's transcendental loving relationships. So such a beautiful sentence that Prabhupada writes, end of the verse. So 32. Now Sukadeva Goswami informed the king that those are that Uddhava, after instructed by Supreme Personality of Godhead, he reached pilgrimage site of Badrikashtama and engaged himself in the service of Lord to satisfy him. So here in the purport, in this verse, Krishna is addressed as he's the spiritual master of the three worlds, and he's the original source of all Vedic knowledge. So we know that how in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Vedescha sarve rahmayeva vedyo vedantavit vedavi vedakrut. I'm sorry, Vedantakrit Vedavit Eva Chaham. I'm the knower of the Vedas, I'm the compiler of the Vedas, and I'm to be known after studying the Vedas. So he's the source of Vedas. So and he's the spiritual master for all. He's Adi, he's Jagat Guru. And here purport further writes that it is very difficult even after reading the Vedas, it is very difficult to understand the personal feature of Supreme Lord, the absolute truth, even from Vedas. But how can we understand that? We can understand only through his personal instructions to understand the personality of Godhead as supreme absolute truth. So where can we find those personal instructions? That is from Bhagavad Gita. So Lord has given his personal instructions in Bhagavad Gita, and also in order to complete that knowledge, he has given those instructions to Uddhava also as part of Uddhava Gita. So we can So only we can understand the more confidential messages through his pure devotees. Uddhava, Arjuna. So the essence is that one cannot understand Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam without help of such confidential devotees of the Lord. And 33, Vidura also heard from Uddhava that the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, that is very subject matter, that subject matter is very, very difficult to understand even by great sages. In the purport, Prabhupada writes that it is a very difficult subject matter for the great sages also, because even many great sages, they don't have any information about the spiritual sky and Krishna's eternal pastimes in Goloka. So his pastimes in this mortal world, he comes here and he manifests the pastimes. One university, I mean, in all the universes, one after another. So in Brahma Samhita, we know the relevant verse is that Goloka eva nivishati akilatma bhuta. The Lord present in Goloka. At the same time, he is super soul. He is all pervading, and he performs his pastimes in the material world. So he's present everywhere. But at the same time, he is eternally present in Goloka with his associates. And 34. So Lord's glorious acts and his appearance and disappearance and extraordinary pastimes are very difficult to understand for anyone other than the devotees. For all the others, in the sloka it is said that pasuna, those are beasts. They're simply a mental disturbance. So we heard that how Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.15 that the miscreants who have engaged in with the material enjoyment, and they work like a beast of the burden. They hardly know the personality of Godhead because they have asrika bhava. They don't have good intention to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So those subject matters, the confidentiality is not revealed to them. And 35. So now here Vidura understood that Lord Krishna has remembered about him, about Vidura. So at the while going back from this world. So by hearing that, Vidura began to cry loudly, overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love. So Vidura was thinking himself that I'm such an insignificant person, but Lord Krishna, Supreme Lord, out of his causeless mercy, he thought about me. So upon knowing that, he became so overwhelmed and he cried with that ecstasy. So Srila Prabhupada writes that one can cry for the Lord in love, is certainly successful in the path of devotional service. So he's very at the higher stage of devotional service. And 36. So now we know that how Uddhava already left to the Badrikashma. And 36 sloka. After passing few days on the bank of river Yamuna, Vidura also left to the bank of Ganges, where the great sage Maitreya Muni is situated. That is the end of the chapter today. And tomorrow we will see how Vidura talks with Maitreya and further great conversation between the few devotees. It is the regular theme how the devotees are meeting with each other and the conversation, and they relive so much confidential pastimes of Krishna, and they also reveal their devotional love to Krishna. We can also come to know, and from this spotless character, how they are devoted and pure devotees of the Lord eternally. I thank you so much. If you have any corrections, please do that, Prabhuji. Thank you for the opportunity. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you,
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Wonderful class, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.